Everyone wants a beautiful yard, but what if the trends that you're copying are secretly making your life harder? Some of the most popular landscaping ideas actually cost more, take more time, and don't age very well at all. Today, I will call out the worst offenders so you won't fall for them. Now, this first one sounds smart, scientific even. But one of the biggest mistakes that homeowners make is treating their landscape like a car instead of a living system with precious components, resulting in a very undesirable conclusion. I hear about this all the time, even from homeowners doing their own applications, but especially from professional companies. Weeds and disease are obviously undesirable, but you don't want to just blindly apply chemicals to your landscape year after year at some schedule. You want to be monitoring it and only apply them as needed. Pre-emergent herbicide is a good example. I'm not opposed to using it when we have a chronic problem with weeds, but when we use it, we realize it isn't good for our soil. And so the whole idea is to just use it once, hopefully, and then never use it again. Fungus control, weed control, pest control, all of these things should be more of an as-needed basis, not something we do without even seeing if we need it. So we address the problem and we monitor closely, and as soon as possible, we get off of those repeat applications, because those repeat applications will make it more likely that over time we continue to have the same pests, the same disease, the same weeds. If you were wondering about how to create a thriving garden without breaking the bank or introducing chemicals into your soil, we've made a free soil health guide just for you. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description. You've probably seen this look everywhere. It used to be popular because of how houses were built. But while housing designs have changed, this unattractive and maintenance-heavy trend has remained. So in the past, the way past, the appearance of housing foundation were a problem, and that's why this trend arose of blocking the bottom of the houses with plants. And usually not a lot of attention was put on how big the plants would eventually get, so usually large shrubs were put in front of the foundations, and over time that would result in having to club them into submission, as Thomas Church said in his book, Gardens Are for People. When we club them into submission, we have really no idea what their natural form is, which in many cases is the most attractive part of the plant. And also, we come up with something that requires constant attention because they get too big easily, they can swallow up the house, they can grow into each other in a way that isn't healthy. Some foundation planting can still be appropriate. It doesn't need to be something that you have to club into submission. You can pick the appropriate plant for the spot that it goes. Now that can also be expanded out into the general garden. We see the same trend go away from foundation planting, where sometimes because of overplanting or for no particular reason, all the shrubs are clubbed into submission into geometric shapes. If we allow plants to grow how they're naturally supposed to grow, we have a much better chance of realizing their true beauty. The next one might be the most normal yard setup ever, which is exactly why nobody questions how inefficient it is. We think it's time to change that. Hopefully right here with this video. A lot of times people say to me, oh, I'll never use my front yard, so let's just put in a big lawn and let's not worry about it. I think that's a mistake. A lawn, to me, is the most maintenance-heavy thing in your landscape. And it takes a lot of work, including regular mowing, fertilizing, pest and disease control, watering properly. It takes usually more water than anything else in your landscape. We recognize that lawns are the only thing that can take constant traffic and that you can play on, and that maybe is good for a dog and kids. We still can make space for it, but I think it's responsible to keep lawns as small features or big features where they're used constantly, but not just as a way to take up space because you can't think of anything better. Let's make it useful. We can have a courtyard where we can sit in and talk to neighbors. These look incredible on Instagram, but in real life, they quickly turn into one of the most high maintenance features in your landscape. For a while, we were getting a lot of requests for these. It seems like they grew in popularity quickly. They came on the scene fast and grew in popularity quickly, and now seems to have subsided a little, and I'm glad for that. I think there's a lot of better alternatives, and that is living walls. And living walls you've probably seen, and when you see a successful one, they're really pretty fantastic. And what you might not realize is that they're comprised of individual little pots with all kinds of different plants supported by, you know, some kind of metal structure or something. And there are so many of these little pots that they're growing lushly and growing together and looking like the wall is alive. And it's a fantastic look. But the fact that it's highly engineered, it takes a lot of careful planning and execution, and then maintenance. Maintenance is a big key to a living wall. A lot of times when you don't do any part of it properly, this is what it looks like. This was a project we actually bid on and didn't get, and then I was curious, so a year later I went to look at it, and I would say it's an unsuccessful living wall. So if you really want plants on your wall, but I've convinced you that a living wall is too much work, check out what we did here at the Fresno Chaffee Zoo. They were contemplating doing a living wall, but instead we opted for what we like to call a green wall. The distinction is, rather than having these highly engineered individual pots, we just plant plants on the top of high areas and allow vines to cascade down, and we plant plants at the bottom and allow them to climb up. And that's a much easier way to go, much less maintenance. Now, some people tell me it's hard to concentrate when Chip's on the screen because he's so cute. But if you've ever been in your yard and thought, this was supposed to be relaxing, why is this so much work? You're exactly who this channel is for. Chip and I would appreciate it if you hit subscribe. It's free. This one sounds relaxing in theory, and it's a great addition to your landscape that I actually recommend regularly, and I'm putting some in my own house here. But it can quietly and sometimes noisily turn into one of the most frustrating and high maintenance features if you don't think it through and aren't properly prepared and properly restrained. Yeah, I like gardens that have a beautiful sound of water and have the ability to remind ourselves of how water occurs in nature. But in my experience is people can become overly enthusiastic about their inclusion and trying to build water features that are really too big for the landscape, too ostentatious or too massive for their particular landscape. If you want a waterfall, I'd prefer to do it on a small scale. If you want a koi pond, I'd prefer to do it on a small scale. In all of these cases, to make them expansive and to make them take up large parts of your landscape, you need to really think through what kind of maintenance that will require, starting with their expense in installing them. Then a lot of times they have problems down the road. Leaks are the most common problem, and then pumps that go out and filters that get plugged, times when the flow isn't there and you don't exactly know why. Could be a combination of leaks and improperly functioning pumps. Water features seem to be a little less identifiable, and more mysterious things go wrong with them, and they're difficult to keep running properly. Instantly get beautiful results with this trend, but there's a hidden trade-off that many people don't talk about, and that is providing color in your landscape with perennials and annuals. With perennials and annuals, you can have color all the time, but there is a cost to that, and that cost is not only the cost of buying the plants, but the cost of constant maintenance and changing them and cutting off dead flowers. And a lot of perennials that bloom a lot require more maintenance than just perennial shrubs. I like the idea of using blooming perennials and annuals, but in concentrated strategic spots. The idea of doing it in your whole yard, I personally think, is impractical. It's creating a landscape that requires a lot of maintenance. And if we're trying to create these ecosystems that are big on beneficials and big on healthy soil and big on limiting the amount of work we have to do, I think a part of that should be only using these colorful perennials and annuals strategically, which then shows off their spectacular nature even better, because when you see it throughout a whole landscape, you kind of take it for granted. But when it's placed in spots of high visibility and high use, then the impact is even more dramatic. At the end of the day, a great landscape and garden shouldn't feel like a second job. It should actually make your life easier and better. If you want some ideas that you hadn't thought of that do exactly that, check out this video with 6 landscaping ideas to get you excited about your garden.